Van Amersfoort Racing have announced their lineup for the 2025 FIA Formula 2 Championship. And in terms of experience in Formula 2, fairly low between their lineup. Let's announce who they're going to be bringing in for the 2025 season. Of course, Van Amersfoort still a new team to the grid within the F1 feeder series. So piloting their cars will be John Bennett. He was the GB3 Series vice champion last year. We did see him step into the car later on in the championship to get his feet in the car, and he did impress, particularly at Qatar, with some good performances there. But this is going to be his first full season. We've seen him do similar to what Joshua Dirksen and Kimi Antonelli did, kind of accelerating past Formula 3 straight into Formula 2. So a big step up for the British driver. Be interesting to see how quickly he can learn what is a very, very quick Formula 2 car in comparison to that GB3 car. Alongside him, the returning Rafael Villagómez, who's been with Van Amersfoort for quite some time now through Formula 3 and Formula 2. This is going to be his second season with the team. He's got some things to prove, though. Villagómez had a very difficult year last year, finishing quite far down the standings. We rarely saw him getting up the order, and a big struggle for Rafael Villagómez came in qualifying. He was the only driver within all of those that completed every race not to get inside that top 10. So that's where we're going to have to see the improvements coming in, I think, from Villagómez if he is going to bring Van Amersfoort up the standings, because he is now essentially their lead driver for this 2025 season. Well, that's my thoughts. Let's get the thoughts of F2 Feeder Series editor Martin Lloyd. Martin, it is quite a low experience team for Van Amersfoort in terms of the two drivers, in terms of their visits to the points and podiums. But what can they do with John Bennett and Rafael Villagómez?
Well, I think it's a really interesting dynamic for Van Amersfoort, because of course it's a really storied name in motorsport, and they've had some success in Formula 2 last season. Very early in the season, Enzo Fittipaldi won the feature race at Jeddah, and we were thinking how well have Van Amersfoort gelled with this new car? Well, not very well at all, because they finished bottom of the championship standings and 27 points away from Trident, who were placed 10th. And it was a really difficult season for Van Amersfoort outside of that high point in Jeddah. I think their lineup this year is very interesting. They've gone with, like you say, two more inexperienced drivers. I think Villagómez, like you say, he's got to step up. He's got to become that team leader, because last season was difficult for him. But you've got to think that he's got to be aiming to push himself above what Bennett can do, and show Bennett, who's coming from GB3, how difficult it was for him last season, but how he's pushed on in 2025. And I think Villagómez, he's shown what he's capable of. He's shown that he can find results. He finished 7th in the Melbourne feature race. He scored on 3 other occasions last season. So it's not like Rafael Villagómez has no points scored in Formula 2 like some other drivers we've seen. He has got talent, and it's about producing that on a more regular basis and becoming that team leader. For John Bennett, I think that it's a really interesting signing. He's the first driver to graduate directly from GB3 to Formula 2, and GB3 really proving itself as a feeder series to Formula 3, and this is the first time it's gone directly to Formula 2, like you say, Chris. A kind of similar jump that Kimi Antonelli and Joshua Dirksen both did in 2024, but it's going to be a real challenge for Bennett. Last season, he did compete in the last 2 rounds. He came 8th in the Lusail feature race, scoring 4 points, which was incredibly impressive considering he'd come from a series that he'd raced in for 3 years that was 2 levels below. But he's shown that he's got some pace. In GB3, he finished in the top 10 in all 3 seasons. He finished 2nd last season, and I think Bennett, he could challenge Villagómez. He could try and produce results, and if he can get in the lower placings in the top 10, which is what Van Amersfoort have got to be aiming for, is their kind of bread and butter, then he could start to build up some form and even cause a surprise or two. You never know. We saw what Joshua Dirksen did last year and his quality, and you never know if John Bennett could perhaps produce the same in a team that was also finished last in the previous season of the Formula 2 team standings. So I think a really interesting lineup for Van Amersfoort this year.
Definitely is. Great points, Martin. You mentioned about some dark horses. Van Amersfoort have produced some of those over the years, and two drivers here, possibly with a bit of a point to prove at the start of the season. And I think we could see a great head-to-head between these two in terms of who takes that lead status within the teams. Rafael Villagómez versus John Bennett at Van Amersfoort Racing. And where they end up is going to be a very interesting story amongst many in the FIA Formula 2 Championship. Well, that's our thoughts. Let us know your thoughts on Van Amersfoort Racing in Formula 2 in the comments below.